8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
International superstar, Miss Buttabrocka!
You are now tuned in to buttabrocka on Transparency Talks Podcast.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Transparency Talks Podcast. I am your girl, buttabrocka. Listen, we have an amazing show for you today. I'm super excited about this young lady. But before I bring her on, I want to bring on my husband. We're doing the show a little bit different today. As you guys know, I typically talk about music and film, everything that I do. But this young lady is doing such amazing things in the industry, in her industry, that is in the food and health industry, that I wanted to bring on an expert of my own, my husband, Terrence Hutchison. He is the CEO founder of Diabetic Cuisine Spices. He's also a certified nutritionist and health specialist. So can you please welcome Terrence Hutchison?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Thursday.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the call with us. I truly appreciate it.
Anything for you, of course.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to introduce to everyone Miss Veleke Brown. She is the founder and CEO of Operation No Food Gap. Can you please show some love?
Hey.
Hello. How are you?
I am awesome. Happy to be here. Looking forward to sharing and really learning. I was excited to hear about your intro, Terrence. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to just dive right on in. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Well, believe it or not, my background is not in health and nutrition. I come from a background of entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. So I really understand the struggles and, as you say, the triumphs, along the way, just called your journey. And as I was in the entrepreneurial space, just learning and training and teaching people about business, I decided to launch a nonprofit organization. And the idea of launching the nonprofit organization was to teach entrepreneurship. I really just wanted to introduce kids to some philosophies and mindsets along the way, books and leaders that maybe they had never heard of, and give them an opportunity to think outside of the box, kind of give them that plan B opportunity. And as I grew the nonprofit, I moved to Florida. I was in the Maryland, DC area. I moved to Florida and I started coming down here, assessing the needs of organizations and asking them, hey, what do your kids need? And that's how we built out the nonprofit. So our pillars are entrepreneurship, etiquette, financial literacy, and health and wellness. And we'll talk about the health and wellness aspect today.
Okay. Terrence, you want to take it over?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. First of all, thank you so much, Queen, for coming on the Transparency Talks podcast. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and also learn from you. Now, when you talk about entrepreneurship, lately, a lot of people want to know more about entrepreneurship, but they always see entrepreneurs as being successful, but showing the more glamorous side of it. When you talk about trials and tribulations, what are some of the downsides, like the cons of entrepreneurship? Because people need to know, like, it can really be very challenging to be an entrepreneur.
Yes. It's interesting because I'm reading a book, as we all do, and the gentleman was talking about that. He was sharing the story of how we really don't highlight our failures for fear of talking about them. But you need to talk about them because it's real. The type of work, especially entrepreneurial sales that I did, was if you ain't sell, you ain't eat. So that was as real as it gets, so you had to learn to work on yourself. But what do you do in those lean moments? What items and what tools do you have in your toolbox? And so for me, in my toolbox were elements of personal development. I learned to work on my mental capacity, my mental strength, because there are going to be times when you're not making a sale and you're not making any money and everything is a no. And, you need mentors and great people around you. And I was fortunate to have those mentors, and they would say, hey, Veleke, don't count the yeses, count the nos. When you get to 100 no's, you're winning. So it's just a shift in philosophy and a shift in thinking. And you just have to keep going because it's not easy. Like they say, if it was easy, everyone would do it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's definitely worth it in the long run. Do you feel like you have to work harder for yourself as an entrepreneur versus a 9-to-5 or a corporate American employee?
Oh, for sure. I think there are challenges on both aspects. One aspect can be, hey, it is perceived as if I have security at my job. They're giving me a check, but the truth is there isn't security because whenever they want to fire you, they're going to fire you, So there's that mental, craziness and mental gymnastics you have to deal with there. But on the entrepreneurial side, you do have more security because you can write your own check. You do have more freedom, but within that freedom, you have to develop some habits and some disciplines, along the way. So, there are challenges on both sides, but it depends on the person because yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but I've learned to not assume that everyone should be an entrepreneur. We can still be supportive agents in different roles. We can operate with an entrepreneurial mindset, and now we're an intrapreneur working within the confines of corporate America to help them fulfill their goal.
Absolutely. I have a question for you regarding your E-RoadMap Corporation. Now, it helps youth and communities avoid health concerns by providing fresh foods and nutrition education. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So E-RoadMap is the parent company, and we launched an initiative called Operation No Food Gap under the Health and Wellness Initiative. And it started really as a way to address the hunger crisis. When COVID hit, the number one thing we realized was, hey, people were hungry and people didn't have access to healthy foods. And people had these underlying conditions that were seemingly growing because of their habits of eating bad food and maybe not having access to it. And I've always been a big proponent of giving out food. And when the COVID relief boxes were out, I'm out there giving out the boxes. And one day I looked at the box and I said, I can't give this mess out anymore. This stuff's going to come back and bite us in the butt, And not only that, a lot of the food that's in these boxes, people don't have the tools to prepare them into a real meal. So I started Operation No Food Gap as a solution to hunger, as a solution to eradicate food deserts, where we literally work with cities and municipalities. We take unused parcels of land and we turn them into farms and gardens with the residents to produce food for the residents. So one of our locations, in 10 months, we grew and harvested 12,000 pounds of non-GMO organic produce and gave it out to the residents. And then we put wraparound services around that in terms of cooking demos, nutrition education, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. I create recreational spaces of peace for marginalized communities because oftentimes you go to the parks and it's not safe. So essentially, Operation No Food Gap is all about eradicating food deserts and also providing access to nutritious foods for our marginalized communities.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome too. When communities start to focus on nutrition and not food, they start to heal internally, and eventually it starts to show externally in all areas of their lives. So when you're talking about community, you talk about young kids or even older people who may not have access to quality food. low density food, fruits and vegetables and healthy fats and whole grains and stuff like that. And then when you come in and you incorporate that into the community, it does so much more for the community overall. So when it came in with the COVID packages, can you just describe what type of items was actually in the packages? Because you said you couldn't serve it anymore. So give us a description of just one box.
Well, I'm going to say it's a disclaimer.
Yeah.
I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. Consult your doctor, all of this. But, they may put stuff in there like milk. Now, cow's milk is for baby cows. Milk causes mucus. Okay. Then they may have something in there like a butternut squash. The Black community didn't grow up on butternut squash. We don't know how to cook butternut squash. They may have an eggplant in there. How are we going to make a meal from that? And they would have things in there that were just processed. And I get step one is when you're hungry to feed them. But I also believe in while you're feeding them, create a solution to feed them better long term, Right. And to your point where you were talking about nutrient dense and how the food that you internalize externally showcases itself. And you're right. We just finished a project with JFK Middle School in Riviera Beach and had a partnership with the school district. And we developed this empty lot because it was beside two other lots that I developed. And I said, I'm going to develop this so we can extend the curriculum outside. On this lot, I created a space for yoga, meditation, mindfulness. So now in the classroom for PE, you're not just running up and down through the gym. We created a stage so we can teach cooking. We created a space so the art teacher can come out and the kids can have inspiration. They can breathe and they can learn some of these coping mechanisms because what's happening is our kids are going to McDonald's. They're going to all these fast food places. I mean, it's not just McDonald's, it's all the fast food places. Yeah. And these chemicals are in the food. And you wonder why your kids are weird because they put weird chemicals in the food and your kids eat the weird food. Okay. So we got to change it.
Yeah, I believe it.
Okay. So what do you feel is the most effective method for raising awareness about the food desserts?
Well, the challenge with the food desert is a lot of people don't even know they're in the food desert. I think back on where I grew up. I didn't know I was in the food desert. We had 7-Eleven up the street, but that's not a grocery store. And, so if I would just suggest that people, one, research what a food desert is. And you look at the type of convenience store, you look at your area and the demographics, and then you look at what's coming in the area, meaning typically in a Black community, you're going to have a bunch of fast food restaurants. Unfortunately, you're going to have a lot of liquor stores. You're going to have convenience stores. Now, the catch is the convenience stores say, hey, we can accept SNAP, EBT, fresh access bucks. That's a Florida term, and as long as we have fresh produce. Now, they're going to have a banana in there that's probably 2 weeks old. But guess what? It checks off the box. But people aren't going in there and buying that banana. They're going in there and buying chips. So if you had, a real grocery store that allow for access for the people to access nutritious foods, then they're used to eating these foods and their health outcomes and health disparities will be different. And so one thing that we do as part of our solution with Operation No Food Gap is we've created E-RoadMap, ERM fresh markets. So we literally create markets in these marginalized communities and bring the food in. Another part of our solution is now we're raising the funds and we're going to build a hydroponics facility, because to your point, how fresh is the food? How nutrient dense is the food? Because we have an issue in terms of how far the food travels. It doesn't make any sense. We're eating chilies from Mexico. Why we can't grow chilies here? So those are the things that we see, but we really don't understand what's happening. And we're working to educate, as many communities about the plight as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned hydroponic gardens, like you put them in the communities. That's a beautiful thing because now you know what you're growing, you know how you're growing it is pesticide free, and you're going to get the necessary nutrients from these foods that get out to the youth and to the family so they can grow up to be strong and really productive in the community as well. So let me what are your primary goals for holistic healing in your program outside of the nutrition aspect of it? Are there anything else are you looking to develop or push to the communities?
Well, again, from our yoga, meditation, mindfulness practices, we are very heavy on that. We also do art therapy. So we'll invite kids to the gardens and literally put up the canvases and they're sketching in the garden. Our goal is to get the kids outside of these four walls, whether it's in the school, the classroom or at home. How can we better connect to nature? Because it's a proven fact when
Yeah.
your extremities, your fingers, your toes, they touch the soil, you're able to decompress.
Yes.
When we learn to deep practice yoga and then deep breathing, now we're slowing down all of these thoughts in our minds that
Mm.
cause to these challenges. So we are looking at a full 360 holistic method, and that's why we have the wraparound services. So we're not just growing and we're showing you how to grow, but we're also learning, we're also teaching you some things that can keep yourself calm, that you can
Yeah.
carry throughout your life.
Yeah, that's awesome because I know youth in the inner city, we're plagued with stress, we're plagued with trauma, depression, anxiety, a lot of things, and we need that release. We need
Right.
something that says, "Hey, I'm gonna show you how to breathe and meditate. I'm gonna show you how to use your God-given skills. Like maybe you know how to draw. Maybe you want to draw, but it's not cool for you to draw in your neighborhood, and they're thinking you're a square or something like that. So now you're giving them an outlet for them to do it, so they can just feel themselves and be more productive in the community. So that's awesome. I commend you guys for that.
Yeah, thank you. And it is, you're right, because in these marginalized communities, unfortunately, they're made up of Black and brown people. And Black and brown people are dealing with trauma. Not, again, not saying that other races aren't dealing with trauma, but I'm speaking about my people because I have that experience. We're still carrying trauma through our DNA from slavery, but that's a whole nother conversation, and so we're processing a lot and we don't have the coping skills. So if we as entrepreneurs that have the mindset of creativity, if we don't go out there and use our talents to serve the masses, then what are we doing?
Right.
For me, in terms of an entrepreneur, yes, I have to keep the lights on. Yes, I have to pay the bills, but I lead with the mission focus, and then the money will come because we need help. Our people need help.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. How do you measure the effectiveness of your program?
So that's interesting. It's heavily data driven. So we're starting a food is medicine program that actually launches.
Mhm.
It's a little slow, but it's going to launch officially May 13th of next month. And we're in partnership with the American Heart Association. And so I'm going to use that as an example. And so what we're doing with that program is we're working with clinicians, and we have a cohort of 50 women. So the 50 women twice a month will come to the farm. They'll participate in a cooking demo, nutrition education, Zumba, yoga, meditation, whatever, gardening. After that, they'll receive a food box that should last them 2 weeks, and they will report back to their physician, and the physician would track, their progress. The idea is to get away from the notion that medication is the key. And it's crazy because, medication is really just stemming from a plant. and then they synthesized it, and now it's something else. So with that, we track the data, we measure their progress. We're seeing if they're losing weight, if how are the A1C numbers improving, what's happening with their high blood pressure. Are they still listed as hypertension? Things of that sort.
Also, you look at the obesity rate, like you just said, are you losing weight? And then if a child or even a young adult find themselves not using the weight, we got to look and see why, like what's happening. Are you emotional? Are you emotional eating? Are you depressed? Are you filled with anxiety? Sometimes it can be the quote unquote medicine. The side effects may be weight gain. So, we really have to pull back the scab and the layers of everything that's going on and use food as thy medicine. When we think about our ancestors, we ate from the sea, we ate from the vine, we ate from the tree, we ate from the land. We ate healthy, and it wasn't all that high processed food, fast food, and all the sugars that we have now. Like I know 65% of all foods that's in the country right now is full of sugar. Even your quote unquote healthy products is filled with high sodium. And they say, oh, this is healthy this and healthy that. But you turn that box around, read the nutrition on there, the sodium is like 900 milligrams, up to 900 milligrams. So it's important to build a garden, teach people about nutritional value, nutritional timing, and focus on and having the practitioners there, the primary physicians, to track the eating, track the weight loss, track the stress management, track the physical activity. It's important to do that. So how do you ensure that the holistic program is culturally competent and exclusive for all children?
Okay, I'll answer that, but I just want to comment on something you said. Now, the medications, you're right, they can cause something else. And that's what happened to my mom. She's a 2-time breast cancer survivor, but because of the medication, it caused her now to be a diabetic.
Yeah.
So you missed the cancer, you dodged the cancer bullet, but now you're dealing with
diabetes
yourself all the time, Now, to your question of, can you repeat that for me?
I said, how do you ensure that your holistic program is culturally competent and exclusive to all children?
Well, that was important to us. We wanted to make sure, one, whatever we grew was culturally relevant. So we have a lot of focus groups. Remember, the type of work that we do, we work with the residents. And I think there's the problem with a lot of organizations going into communities, especially marginalized communities. They feel like, I have the answer. This is what you need to do. No, these people have been living here a long time. How about you ask them what they want? Right. And in our community, especially here in South Florida, you have so many nationalities. You have Jamaicans, you have Haitians, you have, Latinos, you have Blacks, you have Africans, you have all of that. And the interesting thing about that dynamic is they were raised to eat certain foods, which meant they had certain spices.
Yeah.
They had certain ingredients that they can't find here. So how can we figure out a way to bring in some heirloom seeds and grow some things to make sure it's culturally relevant? So in terms of the food, that's what we do. Now, in terms of how we're delivering the information, we work to ensure that if we have a particular population, a Latino population, we have someone there that can translate, or we make sure that the information is given to them in their language. If we have the Haitian population there, someone's there speaking Creole, so it's important to not create any hardship for any of your attendees and be mindful of all the barriers as we move forward.
That's awesome. I like that.
That is awesome. I have a question. What can individuals do to help reduce the prevalence of food deserts in their community?
Well, you need to go to your council meetings. I stay at council meetings. Wish I wasn't at so many, but hey, and a lot of people don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to deal with politics, but at the end of the day, that's the only way things can move. That's the only way you can move the needle, is by being a thorn in someone's side. So any opportunity you have the mic, express that. whatever platform you have, express that. If it's just an email, send an email. If you have a phone, make a phone call. If you go to a council meeting, go to a council meeting and say, hey, you know what? I think our community can benefit from a garden. I think our community could benefit from a program that would allow us to learn how to grow our own food to become sustainable, because if COVID hit one time, what's going to be next? And that's the mindset we have to be in. None of us were ready for that COVID thing, but that should let us know that if COVID came in like that and just wrecked our lives, what could possibly happen next? What did we learn from this situation? So I would suggest that people just make their voices and their opinions be heard.
Awesome. You're right. Send that email, guys. Send that email. Like I know one thing I recognize when COVID happened, the world shut down and everybody was rushing to the stores trying to purchase the shelf stable stuff. All the peanut butters, the breads, the frozen products, like these shelves and freezers was empty, but all the fresh produce was pretty much still there. People were not buying it. Can you tell us why do you think that might have been?
Well, the key word is why do I think? Because I don't know what. I'm no expert. But if people haven't been taught how to prepare meals with fresh food, why are they going to buy the stuff? They don't know what to do with it. And so when we started growing, we knew we needed chefs in there. And I mean, we talk about herbs, to your point, being the CEO of the Diabetic Cuisine Spices, which I think is phenomenal. We'll have to talk more about that. But, people are so conditioned to using what? Seasoned salt. We grew up on Laurie's seasoned salt for a short period of time. But now we learn to grow our own herbs. And now you're incorporating herbs, and that's the seasoning without the sodium. But if you're not taught how to use these items to actually prepare a palatable meal, you're not going to just jump out there and do it. So that's where the education piece comes in. A lot of people want to say, well, Black folks just aren't buying these. Well, what workshops are we having to teach Black folks how to really cook instead of chicken Parmesan, you're using eggplant? What are the workshops around teaching a person that you can use peppers? One of my favorite meals, I'll do multicolored peppers and grill them. And then I'll just put a piece of salmon on it, So if people don't have the education, then why are we expecting them to just move forward in that direction? People are going, we are creatures of habit. And if habit is, I'm hungry, I'm about these Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
About this ice cream, I'm about these Doritos, then that's what we're going to do.
And, it's so funny you mentioned Fruit Loops and Doritos, because these products are banned in certain countries, but they are approved by the FDA in this country, and they're filled with dye. They're filled with all these different ingredients that really causes us to be obese. I grew up on Fruit Loops. Don't get me wrong. I love Doritos, but over time, you got to stop eating it. You got to stop eating that stuff, because those are the things that's pretty much increasing our risks of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and all those different things like that, right? So we got to realize that we have to make better choices when it comes down to nutrition, but we have to educate our community on the type of items that we should be eating instead of all of the traditional foods that we grew up in, or grew up on. Like anything, I'm telling you, anything with a cartoon character on the box, as an adult, you should not be consuming it. Okay.
Right.
So it's like a lot of the products are not free here to get, but they are approved for us to eat, but they make us sick over time. So they approve the food, potentially make us sick, and then you get a drug for the sickness, the Food and Drug Administration. So they keep pushing the food on you to make us sick. Then when you get obese or heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, they give you a drug for that. So this has been in place since 1972, 75. So we really have to build our deserts, grow our own foods, and really educate our community on how we can eat better.
Right. And you said some good stuff there. So that's why I had to grab my notebook. So I didn't want to have to ask you to repeat that. In terms of making better choices, that's what we do in our cooking workshops. Because I found that if you can have a smooth transition, for example, I gave up rice years ago. When I moved down here to Florida, I ended up picking it back up.
Oh yeah, you bet.
Everything down here is rice because of these different nationalities, and it's good.
Yeah.
But rice is not good for the Black person's DNA. It's not. So what we do in our cooking demos, I had my chef to introduce chickpea rice.
Mm-hmm.
And chickpea rice is amazing. I mean, you got to go through some trial and error trying to figure out how to make it work. But once you do, it's great. So I think for our people, it's about, yes, I shouldn't eat that, but what is a good substitution?
Right.
I purchased something on one of our lots called a strawberry tree.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't produce like the regular strawberry you used to. It produces a small little berry. When I got it from the nursery, I sampled it, and guess what it tastes like? Truth. Fruit Loops. Within 2 seconds, it tastes like Fruit Loops. So I bought the tree. Why? Because I want our kids to say, hey, instead of eating all of this sugar with traditional Fruit Loops, let's eat this berry. Right. And to your point about the FDA, the money is not in the cure. If they cured cancer, if they cured AIDS like Dr. Sabi did, speak on that. The money is not in the cure. The money is keeping you sick so you can constantly feed it. And so to my people meaning all people who are interested in health, if you want to save money, improve your health.
Yeah. Yeah. It's oh my God, you're touching on something. The way how the economy is right now, recession, and a lot of people were laid off since COVID, over 6 million people. You have a lot of seniors who are on fixed income. A lot of people are still trying to feel their way to make money, the ends meet. So when it comes down to buying nutrition, some people, especially the people that I know, I work with, they feel like they can't afford to spend the extra dollar on fresh produce, and it's in their budget to buy Fruit Loops and all the high processed stuff because it's cheaper, or they may go get the dollar menu. We have to educate them to say, hey, invest in your health. Spend the extra money now to stay healthy, or you're going to spend the extra money later to get better, because you're going to make yourself sick over time.
Right.
So we have to teach the young generation coming up right now, like you guys are doing, how to eat properly, how to make great food substitutions. You may be used to eating it the way grandma made it back in the day with the lard or the whatever you're doing, whatever culture you're in. But you have to learn how to do ingredient swaps. Instead of the pork, use the turkey, right? Instead of sodiums, you can use our herbs and spices or Parmesan cheese. Instead, like you making lasagna, instead of the ricotta cheese, you can mix cottage cheese with fresh eggs and make that the filler for your lasagna. Those are the type of examples that we need to educate our people about, and how we can really stay healthy long term. So when it comes down to the financial aspect of it, it's important. It's very imperative that we spend the extra money on fruits and vegetables. We have to do it. Now, what you guys are doing with the garden, that's a beautiful thing, because now you spend those dollars into buying the seeds, buying the plants, buying the holistic coaches, bringing the chefs in even if they donate in their time, at least that money is going through something that's going to generate a ROI for you guys, and make sure that the community is getting educated as well, and say, hey, look at the nutritional value of this strawberry plant versus the Fruit Loops.
Right.
And when you get kids to be like, wow, this tastes amazing, all of a sudden that's all they want to consume right there is the strawberries versus the processed foods.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. I remember I did a workshop a few years back, and I caught some kids on stage, and we spoke about how much sugar was in like a bottle of soda, like an individual, like 16 ounce or something. Mm-hmm. And I had a clear glass, and I said, put another scoop of sugar. They couldn't believe how much sugar was in soda. But to your point, we have to make it real. Yeah. We have to make it real for them so they understand. And if you're not making it real, it doesn't seem real. It's like, oh, I got time. I'll catch up with it later. It's no big deal. It's just, 2 sodas a day. That's nothing. But when you show them the sugar content and you break down what the sugar does to your body, it starts to make that connection for them.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let Butter get the question. For that 1 16-ounce can of soda, in order for you to burn that off, you have to run vigorously for 1 hour straight just to burn that can of soda off. So imagine if you're buying a 6-pack or you're drinking a can a day, you got big bottles, you're going to have a problem long term.
Yeah. And this last thing, to your point, you're absolutely right, because I'm not perfect. I have my moments, right? I've gotten much better with candy. I used to love hot tamales, but I finally kicked that habit about 4 years ago. But every now and then I'm gonna eat some gummy bears. Yeah. And I feel bad because I just started going back to the gym. And I'm like, man, all this hard work in the gym, I'm back at 0 because I can't see the progress because I just got to burn off what I ate. So I understand.
You sound like my wife with the hot tamales and the gummy.
It's a tough one to shake, but moderation.
Moderation. Yeah.
Moderations. I felt that it was very important to connect you to, one, because Terrence is a celebrity chef. He's a nutritionist. He has his own spices. You're doing a lot of stuff in the community dealing with health and wellness as well. And I figured that it would be great to connect you to. He would have much more insight on what you're doing in the community and more knowledge than I do, because again, I'm on the entertainment side of everything. And I just felt that this would be a great mashup, and it really was. Y'all have been kicking some things that the audience needs to know. One of the things that I want to know is what I want to know is, are there any government initiatives in place to address food desert?
Well, in the nonprofit space, sure, there are grants, but until you're in the nonprofit space, you don't understand the red tape with that. Right. So yes, bills are in place that have set aside funds, millions of dollars earmarked for eradicating food deserts, workshops around food nutrition, things of that sort. So if someone is in a nonprofit space or working with a government entity, I would suggest go to USDA.gov. They do have a lot of resources, and even check locally with some of your foundations, because your foundations have their primary focal points. Some are focused on education. Some are focused on financial literacy, but others are focused on health and nutrition. And so they may provide some funding around, to help you grow your idea or project in your community.
Awesome. What are some of the qualifications if you want to submit something to the USDA to hopefully get a grant or funding?
Well, mostly for the USDA, you would be a nonprofit or a government agency. And each grant that you see has its own particular requirements. So they would just, the individual would just need to go click link by link and figure out, hey, what are the requirements? And they'll tell you, you can use it for this. Like I saw a grant that was really interesting, but they said, hey, it's only for research. Well, that's not what I'm doing. So I had to pass on it. But there are funds out there, goes back to the entrepreneurial piece. You just have to make sure that dog is hunting. You can find what you need to find, but you got to be willing to put in that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a walk in the park. Like you mentioned something earlier. We said, if you don't hunt, you don't eat, and I think we live in a world where everybody wants something in 3 seconds or less. And it doesn't work like that. In order for you to get something that's really with a whole lot of substance, you're going to have to work for it and be patient, and it will come. Like building a garden, building a community, teaching the community. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes years. It takes research. It takes building the right team, having the right resources in place to really put the program right where you need to go. So how many is Florida? Is that your first program in the community, or how many sites do you have, or how many do you want to develop?
Well, we have 4 sites. Yes, I am in South Florida, so I'm located in Palm Beach County. So we have 4 locations here that we've developed. And I mean, there's a need and we're getting called, but as an entrepreneur, I tell them, you're not going to squeeze me as a nonprofit. Call me, but show me the check too, because it takes, it takes, I'm just gonna be honest, it takes to build.
Yeah.
Because as to your point, you were saying, hey, people want everything right now. They're not patient because everyone wants instant gratification. We live in this microwave society. You put your food in the oven, it's ready in a minute and a half. And you think, hey, well, I spoke to 5 people, why I'm not rich. It doesn't work like that. And the same thing with building a garden. I have to go out there and find partners and pitch to them about, hey, this thing's going to work. I got to build relationships in the community, give me some stakeholders. I got to write grants for it. I got to get volunteers to come out there and sweat with me when it's 100 degrees in the summer in Florida.
Yeah. That's a real grind. And then when it comes down to planting seeds, you got to think about the drought in Florida. So you need the water system. You got to think about maybe squirrels, birds,
iguanas.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those in Florida.
Iguanas are a challenge. You have to learn what to plant so they don't eat it.
Yeah, so you got to keep all those factors in place. And then the number one factor is growth. When it comes down to seeing things come out of the ground, this is not an overnight thing. Things have to germinate. You got to nurture it. You got to water it. You got to whatever type of organic fertilizers you're using. Like it may take weeks. It may take months before it may even seasons before you even see your seed sprout out to something. So people need to be very patient when you're coming down to growing a garden or growing your own food in your backyard. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen overnight.
We have a soursop tree. And that's right.
So I know what that is.
So when we talk about culturally relevant, I am very intentional about what I plant. So we started growing a soursop tree, and it took a year and a half for it to produce any soursop. It took our avocado tree 2 seasons. We were watching a banana tree for 2 years, and then all of a sudden we had all these bananas.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. It goes back to the story of like the Chinese bamboo. You watching it 5 years, for 5 years, you don't see anything, then boom, breaks the ground. And, it's like, that's what you do. So you just have to be patient.
You have to be. What was some of the reactions with some people? Were they impatient, waiting on everything to sprout up, or were you was able to calm their nerve and say, "Look, I'm just be patient"? Most people be like, "It ain't grown yet."
Well, you have all kind of conditions. Yes, we have the drought, but last planting season, like the fall, we had 2 tropical storms that came in immediately. So it's like you're planting, and boom, the water comes in and washes the seed away. I literally had to replant 6 times. Now that's hard.
Yeah.
But, and so people, no, they're patient. Now, last summer was a hard summer because the summer before, and that's all attributed to climate change. The summer before, we were able to harvest watermelons, and one day we harvested 300 pounds of peppers.
300 pounds?
300 pounds of peppers.
Multicolored peppers?
Yes. Yes.
Whoa.
300 pounds. And I'll send y'all the pictures afterwards. And so, so we had an amazing summer harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Next summer, we couldn't get one pepper to grow. Climate change.
Wow.
Hence why I'm moving into the hydroponic space, because you can only control what you can control, and we cannot control the weather. So, yep.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna have to kind of close this out and wrap this up, because we're kind of going over on my time for the radio portion of this. So I would like to find out how people can contact you.
Okay, so the easiest way, you can search for me on social media, and as of last night, I decided to try harder to be more present. Sorry. But you can certainly go to No Food Gap. I have it in my signature, nofoodgap.org. That's the website for Operation No Food Gap. And thank you so much. I've enjoyed my time.
Thank you too. And Terrence, thank you so much for taking your time. I know you was with a client and you came home to get on the call with me, so I appreciate it. He's down in his office, I'm upstairs, so I appreciate it.
You know I got you.
I know you do. So with that, everybody, now Veleke, you stay on, but with that everybody, we will talk to you guys later.